Skull Nation, stop right in OWUS. Bank Stadium just erupted with breaking news, and one fact is already on the table. 27-24. An epic victory in Detroit put Minnesota back in the hunt for the NFC North title. A quarterback returns from devastating injury. A running back leaves the field hurt. Roster depth breeds absolute confidence. Trade rumors involve legends who once wore purple, and the numbers reveal an easier playoff path nobody expected. Each story can redefine this season, starting now. Insiders warned us this weekend, and here's the first concrete payment. Minnesota is undefeated in divisional play with a perfect 2-0 record, while Green Bay, the favorites, sits at just 1-0. The Lions, who everyone thinks will win the division, they're 1-2 in NFC North games. If you scold louder than you breathe, hit like and subscribe right now. We're going to prove that Vikings Nation is the most courageous fan base in football. We start with the numbers that give Minnesota the easiest path to hold the division title and break Green Bay's heart. Stay locked until the end, because there's a double cliffhanger involving rivals you won't see coming. Math doesn't lie. Numbers don't lie. The numbers reveal a brutally honest advantage that Minnesota has over Green Bay, Detroit, and Chicago for the rest of the season. And when you see this, you understand why insiders are whispering that the NFC North is far from decided. You want to know which team has the easiest schedule in the entire NFC North? The answer is obvious now, confirmed by data experts who analyzed every remaining game. Minnesota Vikings. Listen to this. The analysis showed that the Vikings' remaining schedule features a 50% strength of schedule rating, which places them in 15th place, 15th in the entire league in terms of difficulty. Think about what that means. Think about this. That means Minnesota has the easiest path of all NFC North teams to make the playoffs. Green Bay, the Packers have a 55% strength of schedule, giving them a significantly tougher calendar than Minnesota. Detroit, who everybody says is the undisputed favorite, 54.1%. Chicago, same as the Packers, at 55.4%. So all three NFC North rivals have harder schedules than Minnesota. Minnesota is literally playing against the rest of the league when it comes to schedule difficulty in the division. Think about what that means for the stretch run. Minnesota still has 9 games to play, and the path is easier, while Green Bay battles Broncos, Lions, Bears, and Vikings on the road, while Detroit faces the second toughest schedule in the division, while Chicago faces bad teams, but also strong teams. Minnesota exits with the easiest route. It's pure math, but here comes the shocker that changes absolutely everything. Week 10, this weekend, is critical. Green Bay hosts Philadelphia Eagles, 6-2, the defending champion. That's the only Week 10 matchup in the NFC North where the winning teams face each other. It's the toughest game for the entire division this weekend. Meanwhile, Detroit faces Washington Commanders, who have a horrible record. Chicago hosts New York Giants, who are simply terrible. And Minnesota, Ravens, Baltimore, returning with Lamar Jackson, last year's MVP. Wait, Minnesota has the toughest game in Week 10? That's right. But here's the plot twist insiders are whispering about. Lamar Jackson returning from injury means Baltimore could be predictable. Their defense might still be getting into rhythm. But young J.J. McCarthy? He just proved he can win on the road against the second toughest team in the league. If he wins in Baltimore with Lamar Jackson returning, that changes everything about how people see Minnesota. Look at the rest of the remaining calendar. Detroit still faces the Eagles, the 49ers, and the Rams, 3 massive teams. Chicago gets the Steelers, the Eagles, and the 49ers, basically the same strong teams. 3 squads with 6 wins each. Minnesota gets, Minnesota already lost to the Eagles weeks ago, removing that stone from their shoe, while Chicago, Detroit, and Green Bay still have to face Philadelphia. The defending champion, Minnesota, is free from that burden. That's an enormous mental and competitive advantage. The data made a clear promise. If Minnesota wins in Week 10 against Baltimore, they enter Week 11 with breathing room. Detroit faces Minnesota in Week 11, and Minnesota already beat Detroit once, in Detroit, against all odds. Think about the psychological advantage. Think about the momentum. Think about how that affects the playoffs. If Minnesota wins in Baltimore, Minnesota enters Week 11 as a team in high mode. Detroit comes home to face Minnesota when Minnesota is at their peak. The Lions win the division by 1 game, but Minnesota has the easier path to finish the job. Wait until you hear how this affects absolutely everything. J.J. McCarthy returned. Sunday was absolutely epic. 5 games out, a right ankle sprain that would sideline most quarterbacks for months, and this young kid walks into Detroit, the toughest stadium to win in the NFC, and wins like he never left the field. 3 touchdowns, perfect command of the offense. Vikings Nation breathed again after weeks of tension. But here comes the drama that Kevin O'Connell, the Vikings head coach, revealed Monday at his press conference. Aaron Jones, the running back who was putting on an ABS URD performance in Detroit with 98 yards in just 11 plays, a pace that would have landed him 144 yards in a full game. He left in the third quarter with a shoulder injury. Vikings fans' hearts stopped. First McCarthy gets hurt, now Jones? Is Minnesota about to lose everything again? Here's the news that matters and changes everything. The evaluations were positive. Jones suffered a mild acromioclavicular joint sprain. It's not a complete separation. It's not a fracture. It's a sprain that responds well to initial testing. O'Connell clearly said Jones is sore. Obviously, he missed the back half of the third quarter, but his chances of being available for Week 10 against Baltimore are real and tangible. Wait until you hear what this means. Kevin O'Connell was very specific. Good news right out of the gate. He told the entire media. He's sore, obviously from having to exit the game, but today's evaluations were quite positive. We'll see how he progresses through the week, but I'm hoping he can gradually increase his workload, and I'll give you upgrades as the week goes on. Translation: Aaron Jones is coming back. Minnesota doesn't want to lose their running back at a critical moment like this, when they're undefeated in divisional play. If Jones plays in Baltimore, he's the Vikings' lead back against Lamar Jackson's defense. If he doesn't play, Jordan Mason takes the job. In other words, Minnesota has options. Depth, backup plans. But then the story gets much deeper and much more interesting. Ryan Kelly, the Viking center, suffered TWO concussions, not one, but TWO in just a 15-day span early this season. He was placed on injured reserve a month ago. Nobody saw him in action. Nobody knew if he'd return this season. Fans started to worry. Suspicious whispers started. But Kevin O'Connell just revealed Monday at his press conference that Ryan Kelly is going to begin the return process this week. It's official. Kelly will train with the strength and conditioning staff on a side field. The 21-day window hasn't formally opened yet, but O'Connell made absolutely clear the process has started. That means at some point in the next 3 to 4 weeks, Minnesota could have their starting center completely healthy again. Blake Brandel was a backup the last 4 games. He did a good job, was solid, but Kelly is the veteran Minnesota wants protecting their young quarterback. Kelly is the guy who calls plays, who organizes the line, who commands the offense. And here's the twist nobody saw coming that changes everything about how you think about Minnesota. Christian Darrisaw is already back. Brian O'Neill is back. J.J. McCarthy is back, and it was glorious. And Drew Van Ginkel returned. Basically, Minnesota is an injury recovery machine. 4 of their best players got medically cleared simultaneously. The offensive line is consolidating. The defense got real reinforcement. That's rare in the NFL. Teams that can bring back for starters at the same time. Those teams win divisions. Those teams make the playoffs healthy. But wait, there's a balance of power here. Theo Jackson, one of the safety depth pieces, was placed in concussion protocol Monday after reporting mild symptoms. C.J. Ham, the versatile fullback, has a hand injury that limits him. Josh Oliver, the tight end who could be important, has a foot injury. Minnesota is a team right at the critical point between being completely healthy for the first time this year or seeing everything collapse again in 1 week if luck turns. That's the raw reality of being in November in the NFL. You're one broken leg away from chaos. But Minnesota is getting close to having everybody back. Here comes a piece of news that wasn't expected Monday during the press conference. Kevin O'Connell, the Vikings head coach, talked about John Wolford. Yes, John Wolford. You know who he is. He's the quarterback O'Connell personally coached when they were both in Los Angeles in 2020 and 2021. He's the third QB in a system that now needs to be not just deep, but star deep. Get it? Deep in star power, not in nobodies. Max Brosmer, an undrafted rookie nobody expected to make the NFL, is the second QB. John Wolford signed with the practice squad to start. And here's the plot twist that insiders started whispering about after Adam Schefter from ESPN broke this. League sources believe Minnesota could still pursue a much more renowned, experienced veteran quarterback before the approaching trade deadline. Kirk Cousins, the name appearing in every rumor circulating among insiders. Kirk Cousins is sitting as a backup to Michael Penix Jr. In Atlanta, Cousins is exactly the type of quarterback Minnesota wants as insurance. He already played in the Vikings system. He knows it like the back of his hand. He's the veteran to sit on a bench if his team is out of the playoffs. He wants to play. Minnesota wants a backup who knows exactly what to do. But then comes the reality that ruins any possible Kirk Cousins trade. The Falcons value him way beyond what any team wants to pay. They're asking for more in return than teams can afford. And remember, any team that signed Cousins would have to absorb nearly half his salary of $27.5 million in 2025. That's right, $27.5 million plus $10 million guaranteed for 2026. Cousins even has a no-trade clause that means he has to agree to any trade. Atlanta won't let this go cheap. Cousins won't agree to go to a team that won't let him be the starter. It's mathematically impossible. So what is Minnesota really doing? Kevin O'Connell is talking about bringing John Wolford to the 53-man roster soon, probably this week. Wolford is super intelligent, O'Connell said. He has plenty of athleticism and agility. He has quick reflexes to read defenses and throw the ball on the move. He understands the Vikings' passing attack because he trained with O'Connell in Los Angeles. He's the viable option, the option you can bring to the roster without giving up draft picks. But here's the secret insiders are whispering about. O'Connell is leaving the door wide open for a much bigger acquisition. I think that's important for two young players, O'Connell said about Wolford and Max Brosmer. Real translation, Wolford is the safe backup, the veteran all young QBs need around. But if Russell Wilson or Jameis Winston from New York Giants become really available at a price that makes sense, Minnesota is going to pounce like hawks. The Giants chose Jackson Dart as their future. Wilson and Winston became dispensable, no longer central to the plans. And here's the rumor circulating hot among insiders covering the trade deadline. Minnesota would prefer Winston to Wilson. Why? Because Winston has a contract through 2026 and still has real potential to be a starter at some point. Wilson is in real decline. Can you see the difference? Winston is future, Wilson is past. But either would be drastically better than what Minnesota currently has as a second or third quarterback. O'Connell is being clear with the media. Minnesota is comfortable with the depth they have now, but comfortable in football speak means ready to strike if an opportunity appears. John Wolford is coming to sign the final paperwork this week. And if Russell Wilson or Jameis Winston gets out of New York at a price that makes sense, Week 11 could bring the surprise nobody expected to see coming. Minnesota could have an NEW veteran running the offense if McCarthy gets hurt again. Kirk Cousins, the name that screams through trade deadline rumors like an alarm nobody can turn off. You know what Dan Graziano from ESPN is saying on the street. The Falcons are still asking too much. They're asking a price that's simply not realistic. But let me break down exactly why Kirk Cousins would be perfect, absolutely perfect, for Minnesota and why it probably won't happen on the timeline you expect to see. First, the raw reality nobody wants to say out loud. Atlanta is asking for more in return than any team wants to pay. They're not even slightly willing to absorb any significant portion of Cousins' salary. O'Connell would have to assume almost half of the $27.5 million, plus a promise of $10 million for 2026. That's impossible for a trade. It's astronomical. It's the type of contract that kills a team's salary flexibility for 2 years. Second, here comes the twist that changes absolutely everything about Kirk Cousins. Cousins is showing real and obvious signs of decline since Michael Penix Jr. took over in Atlanta. The Falcons put him in the position of could-be starter if Penix gets hurt. He's not the Kirk Cousins from 2023 that Minnesota knew. He's an older, more tired version that the Falcons don't see as the future. He's a diminished version. So what should Minnesota really do, according to analysts and insiders covering the trade deadline? Look at New York Giants, Russell Wilson or Jameis Winston. Both are drastically cheaper in terms of trade capital. Wilson will be a free agent in 2026. Winston has a contract through 2026 and offers real long-term potential. Either would be an epic addition alongside McCarthy, and both come with fewer contractual restrictions than Cousins. Here's the secret being whispered among insiders covering transactions. Minnesota prefers Winston to Wilson. Why? Because Winston has more real potential. Wilson is in very obvious decline. Can you see the difference between a quarterback who still has gas left and one burning his last fumes? That's the calculus O'Connell is making. Winston is future. Wilson is past. Winston is a bet. Wilson is insurance that doesn't insure. But KOC is being strategic, very strategic. He's bringing John Wolford first, testing the depth, seeing if McCarthy stays healthy for 7 completely straight weeks. If McCarthy stays healthy and no injury happens, maybe Minnesota doesn't do anything at the trade deadline. Minnesota sticks with Wolford, Max Brosmer, McCarthy, and this offense destroys everything. If McCarthy gets hurt again, then Minnesota attacks. Then Minnesota goes after Winston. Then Minnesota changes the game. Here's the scenario nobody is talking about. Kirk Cousins wants out of Atlanta. He wants to be somewhere he can play, but the Falcons won't let him out cheap. The Falcons are telling any interested team, if you want Kirk, you pay expensive, very expensive, too expensive. So Minnesota looks at alternatives. Minnesota sees Winston. Minnesota sees Wilson. Minnesota does the math. And here's the truth nobody wants to say out loud. Kirk Cousins might never take the field for the rest of his career if Minnesota brings him in. If J.J. McCarthy stays healthy, McCarthy is the future. Cousins would be insurance. Insurance that never plays. A contract you pay for safety, not performance. The Falcons know that. The Falcons are asking for more in return because they know any team that wants Kirk knows that Kirk might never take the field. That's the untold reality of the situation. Cousins is old. Cousins might be broken. Cousins might not be right to run a young offense in November. So the question isn't should we bring Kirk? The question is should we assume that risk at that price? And Minnesota's KOC is saying no, at least for now. Aaron Jones, the Vikings running back, and an update that changes absolutely everything about how Minnesota can run the offense. The next 7 days against Baltimore, Aaron Jones got positive updates on his shoulder injury Monday. Positive. That's the word that matters here. Positive. After undergoing additional testing, high-definition MRI, strength tests, mobility tests, everything that Minnesota's top-tier medical staff does for players who leave in the third quarter. Kevin O'Connell spoke to the media with confidence. The evaluations were quite positive regarding Jones' shoulder. You know what that means? It means the tests they run to see if their structural damage came back clean. It means there's no fracture. It means there's no complete separation. It means there's hope. Jones told reporters from the Star-Tribune that he suffered an acromioclavicular joint sprain, not a complete separation requiring surgery, but a sprain that responds well to testing. He's sore, obviously, because he lost almost half the third quarter of a one playoff game and left the field looking like someone in real pain. But he has legitimate chances of playing Week 10 against Baltimore and Lamar Jackson. Now here's the context that changes everything about why this news is so important. Aaron Jones' season has been irregular from top to bottom. He got hurt in Week 2 with a thigh injury, a muscle contusion that sidelined him for full weeks. Think about it. 4 weeks out, 4 weeks of offense without your veteran running back. That hurt his early season from day one. Nobody could build rhythm with Jordan Mason covering. But before leaving the Detroit game, Jones was putting on his best performance of the season. 98 total yards in just 10 plays. 98 yards, 10 plays. Can you do the math? That's a pace of 156 yards in a complete game of 58 plays. He was destroying Detroit's defense. He was in the rhythm. He was in flow. And then the shoulder got affected. Or rather, it was impacted. Fortunately, the versatile running back avoided the worst possible scenario. The scenario that would send Minnesota into total panic mode. He could be on the field against the Ravens. Despite missing for games this season due to injury, Jones still ranks 4th in receptions for Minnesota with 79 receiving yards. He's still an important safety valve option for his second-year quarterback J.J. McCarthy. And here's the number that changes everything. In the 2 games where Jones and McCarthy played together, they connected 5 times for 64 yards and a touchdown. 5 connections, 64 yards, 1 touchdown. They have chemistry. They have S, Y, and C. When McCarthy looks for a receiver, he knows he can count on Aaron Jones to be in the right place, to catch the ball, to turn and gain yards. That's trust. Jones also provides a quick passing option in complement to the one-dimensional approach of his backfield mate Jordan Mason. Mason is the pure running back. Mason hits the line and gains 5 yards by force. Jones is the passing guy. Jones is the safety valve. Jones is the guy who catches the ball in open space and takes off. When you have both, you have offensive flexibility. When you are both healthy, you're unstoppable. Here's the scenario insiders are whispering about. If Aaron Jones plays against Baltimore on Sunday and he wants to play, and everything points to the fact that he wants to, then Minnesota has the complete offense. For the first time in weeks, McCarthy is healthy. Jones is healthy. The line is returning. You have Christian Darrisaw. You have Brian O'Neill. You have Andrew Van Ginkel on the fence. You have everything you need to win in Baltimore. But here's the balance. If Jones sits out of the game and stays out for caution on Sunday, then Jordan Mason takes over the job completely. Mason will do solid work, but you lose the safety valve that Jones provides. You lose the passing option that makes the offense unstoppable. You become more predictable. The Ravens understand you're coming with power. The Ravens understand you're coming straight power running. The Ravens prepare their game plan accordingly. It's the difference between winning and losing in a playoff game in November. 5 stories. One storm that changed absolutely everything in a single Monday. One Kevin O'Connell press conference transformed how the Vikings will finish this season radically. The recovering offensive line contract makes the attack unstoppable. Quarterback depth builds absolute safety. Ryan Kelly's recovery prepares the future. The easy schedule offers the clearest path. Aaron Jones coming back means Minnesota has every tool needed to not just win the division, but win it dominantly. Minnesota isn't rebuilding. Minnesota isn't hopeful. Minnesota is hunting. Let me break down what this really means for the entire NFC North. If the Vikings execute on all this, if they go 5-1 in division, if they win in Baltimore, if Aaron Jones plays, if the line returns, Green Bay is out of the conversation to win the division by mid-November. Detroit is facing a harsh reality. They have to win games that shouldn't be easy. Chicago is Chicago. They're 3 years away from anything real. The NFC North doesn't run through Green Bay anymore, doesn't run through Detroit anymore. The NFC North runs through US Bank Stadium. And it's true. The numbers show it. The schedule proves it. The health confirms it. Here's the simple calculation that changes absolutely everything. If the Vikings go 5-1 in division, 5 wins, 1 loss, they win the division. They can do it with the schedule they have. They have to home games against the Lions and the Packers to close out the season. If the Vikings rattle off a winning streak in the next 2 months, they put themselves in position to fight for the NFC North title not just in Week 17, but dominantly. The numbers are on their side. Destiny is forming. Now listen here. Listen good. The math is there. The talent is there. The depth is there. McCarthy is healthy. Aaron Jones is about to be healthy. The line is returning. The schedule is the easiest. Do you believe the Vikings just became the most dangerous team in the entire NFC? Because I believe it. Because the numbers say I should believe it. Now here's exactly what I need from you, Vikings Nation. UNO. Smash that like button right now. Immediately, if you believe the Vikings just became the true favorite to win the NFC North. 2 seconds. Bang like do it. DOS. Drop a comment below with your boldest prediction for the rest of the season. Are we undefeated in division? Do we make a deep playoff run? Do we reach the NFC Championship? Or are we heading to the Super Bowl and bringing the trophy back to Minnesota? Let me know. Let me know now. Ters, subscribe, because every subscriber makes Packers fans furious, and we're about to take over the entire North Division. Subscription is power. Subscription is propaganda. Subscription is proof that you believe in Vikings Nation. But listen here, because here's where things get very interesting. 1 subscriber is still missing. The contract isn't official until the player puts pen to paper and signs with their own blood. Insiders say he's waiting to see if the Vikings make one last move before committing. That decision could come in the next 48 hours. That decision could break the division or freeze everything in place. And wait, because there's more. The Packers just freed up $22 million in cap space. $22 million. They're targeting the exact same free agent the Vikings are hunting. Which domino falls first? Minnesota or Green Bay? Which team gets the veteran first? Which team puts itself in better position for the late November stretch? Which team has the rhythm? Which team has the momentum? Plus, there's a rumor circulating hot that a Vikings defensive leader called a players-only meeting Monday night. No coaches, no front office, no outside influence, just players, just leadership, just truth. And what was said in that room could unite this team forever, a bond no force in the NFL could break, or it could fracture it into pieces. That's the human side that numbers don't show. That's the side that wins divisions. That's the side that wins Super Bowls. That story drops next video. You don't want to miss it. Vikings Nation, the battle is here. The division is ours to take. Hit subscribe, stay locked, and let's make the NFC North bleed purple. Vikings Nation is future. We walk together, we hunt together. See you in the next war.